Hi, and welcome back. This week we're going to be covering lessons 17 through 20 in level F, and you will need your centimeter cubes, the Casio calculator, worksheets 7 through 10, the basic number cards, tally sticks, math journal, place value cards, and the math card games book. So in lesson 17, we're going to learn about numbers cubed, the meaning of power in relationship to exponents, and how to find exponents on the calculator. So the warm-up reviews numbers squared, and then we move on to numbers cubed in the actual exercises. Using the centimeter cubes, your child will construct a 2 by 2 by 2 cube, and then enlarge it to a 3 by 3 by 3. This physical construction is a great overview of the concept. Next, we're going to learn about powers. For example, 3 squared is 3 to the second power. It's a whole lot easier to say 3 to the fourth power than to say 3 quadrupled or 3 to the fifth power instead of 3 quintupled, right? So it works for 3 squared, 3 cubed, but after that we just say to the power. So 3 to the power of 4 or 3 to the fourth power. Now we will explore finding exponents on the calculator by using the constant feature. This is a great tool. It's used for repetitive action. So if you're multiplying something by 10 continuously, then you would keep using the constant key rather than having to keep entering in 10 times something. So when I was a kid, we all played with calculators and became familiar with the functions just intuitively. With so many devices available for entertaining our kids during long road trips and such, kids just aren't as used to calculators as we were. So they will be explored in this curriculum. Also a note, if you're not using the Casio calculator that was included in the RS2 math set, then you're going to need to find out how to activate the constant feature in this device. And also in the future, there'll be other instructions for how to use the calculator, so you might have different rules to follow in order to activate those features, okay? So after completing the worksheet today, go ahead and play Make 20, and this time include exponents. For lesson 18, we will be writing expressions using parentheses and exponents. The warm-ups involve evaluating expressions, and evaluating means to find the value of something, right? So say the equation was 6 plus 4, they need to write down 10, right? 6 plus 4 equals 10. But in this case, on worksheet 8, the instructions say to write each problem as a mathematical expression. That doesn't say equation, there's no equal sign, and to not solve the equation. In other words, you would write 6 plus 3, but you would not write equals 9. So for the first problem, you should take a look at it. They give you 2 examples of acceptable answers. I would say that there's a third one. You could write 2 times 16 plus 2 times 15. So if your child does choose that option, that's fine, it's acceptable. However, please point out the other possibilities because they use parentheses. And so I think that was the point of this exercise, is to get the kids to use the parentheses. So the second problem may take some time to figure out. It's a bit of a riddle. So find something to occupy yourself, okay? Because then you can resist that temptation to give hints and to interfere in their thinking. Let your child have the uninterrupted time to think and to solve this problem. Okay, notice that for problems 5 and 6, the right-hand explanation, so in that right-hand column under explanations, it does give you the numerical answer, but it is not expected that your student would know it or write it down or figure it out even. They just gave you that answer there in case there's a question as to whether or not those 2 expressions produce different answers. All right, so you can point to the answers and say, yeah, the answers are definitely different. Let's figure out how come. Why are they different? All right, so then you could go ahead and work together on solving the problem, and then the answers are there so that you know that you got it right. All right, I would ask the in conclusion question before the game this time, which is make 30. Make 30 is a variation of make 20 from lesson 15. So now the goal is to make 30, but it's played exactly the same way. So the objectives for lesson 19 are to review place value and to write numbers in their expanded notation using exponents, okay? So the warm-ups are a quick oral review of exponents. And then the lesson book tells you to have your student read worksheet 9 and to complete it up to the table, not including the table at the bottom. I would suggest reading the information either on the worksheet or in the lesson book. It's the same. I just found the way it was written on the worksheet was easier for me to read. I would read that top information yourself. And if you think it may be confusing to your child, go ahead and read it together with your child, checking for understanding as you go. So ask, you know, how does this work and whatnot. And I would also have the place value cards available. They're not mandatory. They're not, you don't have to use them, but if your student wishes to use them, it's perfectly acceptable. Because sometimes it's easier to understand what's going on when you're actually the one manipulating the cards rather than just looking at it printed out on the paper. So before continuing on to the table, do the exponents with tens section. And you'll write out 10 times 10 and 10 times 10 times 10, and your child will solve those problems. Now your child is ready to finish that worksheet. So go ahead and let them finish the table and answer the last question, which is really important. Play Guess Right. That is D16 in the Math Card Games book. This is in preparation for long division, which will be coming up soon. So you'll play it this lesson and the next lesson. And just a note on this game, before the game starts, each player draws 2 cards and overlaps them to make a 2-digit number, and then prepares a list of the multiples of that number times 1 through 10. This is only done one time per game, per child, right? So if you have 4 kids playing, they're going to do, each child is going to do their own number, their own double-digit number. And you can make the game more interesting and harder with a triple digit if you wish. But it's just one list of multiples per game per child, okay? So I will give you an example of that because for me it was confusing when I read the directions. So let's go ahead and look at an example. So for this game, I drew a 1 and a 3. And so I could make 13 or I could make 31. And for this example, I'm just going to choose 31. Okay, so now that I have 31, I need to make a list of the multiples. So I could say 31 times 1 equals 31. 31 times 2 equals 62. 31 times 3 equals 93. Now, your child could keep going and writing down 31 times the whole way down. Or if they get the point, you could just write down the number. Okay. And then, so 31 times 4 is 124. 31 times 5 is 155. 31 times 6 is 186. 31 times 7 is 217. 31 times 8 is 248. 31 times 9 is 279. And then 31 times 10 is 310. Okay, so all they need is to keep this list. I would do it in their math journal, and that is for the entire game that they're playing. So maybe they play 3 or 4 hands, they're going to use 31 and the multiples of 31 for that entire game. Okay, so each round has 1 checker, and then the rest of the kids who are playing are the guessers. So you'll only need 2 cards. Each kid will only need 2 cards, and the list while that child is the checker. So if I was the first checker, for example, I would have my list and my cards out. The other kids cannot see my list, but they can see the 31, okay? If I was not the first checker, I would just place them to the side until I became the checker. So if you're playing with 2 to 4 players, have everyone be a checker 3 times about. If you have more kids, then just do 2 times. That would probably be enough. So for lesson 20, we're working on multiplying and dividing by tens. The warm-ups are on the worksheet today, but don't have your child continue with the worksheet past the warm-ups. Just hold on to it for a sec. So then the first exercise is to multiply by 10 on the calculator. And the point of the exercise is to see what role the decimal point plays in the display. Okay, where is it located? What does it indicate? The next exercise is dividing by 10 and to go below 1 so that you can see how the decimal indicates tenths, hundredths, thousandths, right? So now your student is ready to complete the worksheet. And I like to stick around to see that that first problem is done correctly, that whole first row, but then try not to hover, find something else to do. I'm sure you can find plenty of things to do while your child completes the worksheet. Then you guys can come back and check the answers and make sure everything's okay. It's nice to be able to let the kids do their work on their own so that they're not interrupted and they can think through problems. But it's also good to check it right away to make sure that if there's any mistakes, they're corrected. All right, so you can play the Guess Right D16 game again today, and then follow up with the in conclusion questions. Okay, so that's it for this week. Have a good one, and I will see you next time for lessons 21 through 24. Thanks, bye-bye.